And I welcome the fact that you mentioned, you know, the importance of reaching the marginalised groups and people who unfortunately hadn't great opportunity to achieve great levels in skills or in educational attainment either. I remember back at a meeting of the British Irish Parliamentary Assembly we held in Stormont in March of last year, of 2023, I arranged for the members of the Women's Coalition to come and talk about their experience in the talks and in the Assembly in its first iteration. And, you know, there was the Women's Coalition, they did very valuable work, and, you know, their work was lauded from people of all parties and from both the Irish and British governments as well. And I remember some of those Women Coalition leaders saying at the time, you know, they were very conscious when they were established with the need that they wanted to try to get women involved in the peace talks. They go back to 1996, I remember them saying that it was unlikely that they would have good, strong voice for women, particularly to make the talks inclusive, and particularly for people from marginalised communities as well. Now, the Women's Coalition, their contribution, along with other political parties, was very important in the successful outcome to those talks. And they also spoke at that meeting about the need to have champions for women from all backgrounds. And I remember that day Karen Smith, who's British Labour MP, spoke about the contribution over the years of Baroness May Blood. Mm-hmm. I knew May very well because she had been a member of the British Irish Parliamentary Assembly going back many, many years. And she was a great champion for the disadvantaged, for people from marginalised communities, and for women's voice as well. And, you know, she was a trailblazer at that time, really, come back when politics was very, very difficult in Northern Ireland at the time, and the community that she came from. But she spoke on behalf of all people, particularly the people the less well off and the people who were marginalised. So I think it's extremely important that there is good buy-in, good participation from women in any constitutional talks going forward, in discussions and dialogue. And I very strongly accept the point that you make. Citizen assemblies can be valuable, but you need a much more extensive dialogue at sectoral level, and because there are so many issues in regard to what's the future constitutional position of this country. It's not a matter of saying it's a majority north and south in favour of United Ireland. We have to outline, you know, what the health system would be, what the education service would be, what our policing system would be, our likely funding models from the point of view of raising taxation to pay for services as well. So I think it's extremely important. If you take the shared island concept, you know, there are shared island dialogues on different issues. There's a youth forum, there have been different fora covering different aspects of our everyday living. So I think from that point of view we can learn, and it's the type of model where we need as much participation as is possible. So I welcome the work that you have done, and you might, in conclusion, coherently, you might just say, have you or any of your colleagues who led on this research, did you engage people like, say, Monica McWilliams or others, Brona Hines or others who were involved in the Women's Coalition, to draw on their experience? Because I think nowadays we have a tendency to ignore experience of people who have been through some process, what they learn from it, the knowledge that they can impart, and the wisdom where people are going forward for similar discussions or similar major talks in the future. I think we need to draw on the experience and expertise of people. And one thing, of all of us who are members of this Oireachtas, our committee here, led by our Cathaoirleach Deputy O'Dowd, we did a major piece of work on the Good Friday Agreement on the 25th anniversary, and where we met the architects of the Good Friday Agreement, the Bertie Ahern senior people from Jonathan Powell, who was close to Mr. Blair's Chief of Staff. We had Major John Bruton, other senior civil servants, both from our own government, for the British side as well, and leading political leaders from the Northern Ireland parties as well. So we all learned from what they outlined, the experiences that they had in that talks process. So again, I welcome it. I think every bit of research that can be done, but it's extremely important to ensure that any negotiations going forward are as inclusive as possible, and to make sure it's not the same usual people who are participating in these discussions, that we have people that are representative of society in general. Thank you, Oireachtas.
Well, I know Monica and Brona very well, and I'm a member of local peace building groups, so we commune every couple of months to discuss sort of peace building issues, and they're both there. The work that I'm doing now is actually very much based in the experience of the Women's Coalition. And the work I refer to as the published work, that was in the form of a book that looked at all the gender dimensions of the Good Friday Agreement. Now really, I think in terms of the debate on constitutional change, the really important aspects there are the provisions that the Women's Coalition attempted, or did actually, achieved in the Good Friday Agreement. And that included really important participatory forms that may not have been ideal in the original form, but could have been worked up, and that was the civic form. We lost it. They had inserted provisions on shared education, addressing social need, the rights of victims and survivors. They were very involved in putting all of those provisions in. And the problem is that other issues, again, took priority, and those were the issues that became part and parcel of the political culture, and the ones that were, sort of debated. So I think there's a lot to be learned there. One of my concerns is that women would be brought into this process and be viewed as good for the process, as contributing and benefiting the process, but then their aspirations and their objectives would slowly be pushed to the side after any decisions had been made. So I think in terms of looking back at the last period of constitutional change in 1998, it really is very, very important, as you say, to look at the Women's Coalition, look at their aspirations, their really deep focus on that connection and that bridge between policymakers and the grassroots. And again, in our research, that is something that women are flagging up, that the importance of that bridge from the grassroots into political forms. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I couldn't go back home if anyone thought I was ignoring Monica.
I don't know if you knew May Blood, in our contribution. I think we should always, in the most difficult of times, she was there, the voice of reason. And
these are giant figures that you're talking about, and thankfully now we are able to celebrate those women, and to give them the proper recognition that they do deserve. However, I just want to say that women are really important politically, and they contribute a lot politically, but women also have needs and rights as well. It's not just our contribution. The things that May and Monica fought for were also concrete rights that we can achieve.